rebel titan, we smoking alchemist.
Hip-hop is Thought I was gone, but I'm back again. To shut a dumb nigga mouth like I'm Jeremy Lin. Realize that
What's up, fuckheads? Tommy C here. Listen, guys, this is a fuckhead call to arms. You know how Real Talk from the Metaphor Messiah supports us right here on Shop from the Point. I'm calling on you to support him. On March 16th of 2018, Kingslayer turned King by Real Talk the Metaphor Messiah. Only $6.93 on Amazon comes out and other platforms that'll be listed in the description box below. Guys, I've got this record already. It's by far his best work, and I would appreciate it if you would go pick it up as well. It comes out on March 16th, only $6.93. I'm Tommy C, and we're all here to support Real Talk, the Metaphor Messiah. Pick it up right now. You're hearing one of the best cuts off of it, and there's much, much more. Thank you very much, and I'll see you soon.
That clock keeps ticking like a metronome, and my thoughts keep telling me to get me home, but my balls keep telling me to let me just let me That clock keeps ticking like a metronome, and my thoughts keep telling me to get me home, but my balls keep telling me to let me just let me That clock keeps ticking like a metronome, and my thoughts keep telling me to get me home, but my balls keep telling me to let me Fuck all that shit, just let me go.
Broadcasting live from the heart of Europe. This is the most badass YouTube broadcasting. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Tommy C, and I got a Shop from the Point special. Tipster! This is long overdue. Long overdue. Let me give you a background on him on the way we go back. When I got picked up for Baited, you were the first guy over 10K that followed me. You know that?
Oh, really?
Yeah. And like, you know, most of our relationship, we haven't talked. I don't think we've only talked once or twice prior to this live, and never really personally. But Tipster was there when I got picked up for Baited, before Baited, when Baited fell apart, and he was always. I'm usually the guy everybody leans on, but this is the guy I lean on when I get a little depressed and wonder what the fuck's going on. But I just wanted to thank you right off the friggin' bat. That when, like, this is the guy, this is my psychiatrist. I don't go to you a lot because I'm very mentally strong. I'm a tough guy, not a soy boy. But this is the guy I go to when I'm like, God, man, I can't believe I'm fucking this up.
Since you want to bring that up, let's be honest. When the whole Keemstar thing was going down, you were going to join Baited. Didn't I warn you that? Was going to find a way to screw you?
Yeah. I mean, like you weren't the only one. David is Gaming warned me too. He recently just followed me back on Twitter. Yeah, you weren't the only one, and the way I saw it, it was risk-reward, and no matter what the scenario would be, I'd finish up, and that actually turned out to be the case. So, but yeah, I definitely needed some treatment during the thing, and Tipster was my guy. He runs a mostly retro gaming. He does some modern games. He's really into Resident Evil. I would say he's a Resident Evil expert. And you can look at his collection right there. It's amazing. And I'm really getting into, because I've been sending you a message about this, the emulator consoles that they're selling. They're starting to get more and more popular. Even Nintendo's getting in on it. Like they're reissuing HD stuff like that. So that's what Tipster has to offer you. But as you all know, I want to say back in November, December, Mr. Activision, Todd Rogers, was found out that he cheated on an Atari 2600 game, which I always thought was one of the stupidest games ever made. Dragster.
It's a really lame game.
It's lame as hell. You're younger than me, though. How old are you?
I'm 31.
Yeah, so Atari 2600 isn't your... I mean, you don't get the warm fuzzies when you see the 2600. I would imagine that would be 8-bit for you, right?
Well, under normal circumstances, someone my age, you're right. Atari wouldn't have anything on them. But as a kid, my parents, they couldn't really afford to get me a Nintendo. Yeah. So I started out with Atari. They gave me their hand-me-down Atari. So I get lots of warm fuzzies from the Atari.
Oh,
man.
Get out. Well, that's true. So you were one of those kids, like, when I was a kid, who were like, hey, I just got the new Nintendo 64. I got the Dreamcast. I have Super Nintendo. No, we're not going to your house. We're not going to your house. You just got the fucking old console. All right, I get it. All right, real quick summary. I knew this would happen. I called it. You did too. Todd Rogers goes down with the dragsters. There's all sorts of other corruption that I won't get into with Todd Rogers. Been plenty of videos made on it. What happens with Billy Mitchell's contested scores, which, by the way, were already contested when the Todd Rogers things broke? What initiates this investigation? And give me the long or the short of what happened after Todd Rogers.
Well, the thread was getting really huge. They set up a dispute thread over on Twin Galaxies website, and there were already massive conversations going on among the little niche community. But honestly, after Apollo Legend did his video on Todd Rogers and Todd Rogers went down, that's when the focus really shifted on Billy Mitchell. Like, hey, we think this guy's cheating too. We should really probably pay attention to this guy now and see, like, is there some legitimacy to these, these complaints or whatever, or these accusations rather. And so that's when people really started focusing on it. And then, of course, Apollo Legend dropped his video on it, and it just kind of blew up from there.
And the contents to make Apollo Legend's video, because Apollo's video takes from another video, what they're accusing Billy of, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, is actually I stream a lot of MAME, a shit ton of MAME on my arcade channel. And so, and I knew this about Donkey Kong years ago. But you had to get Donkey Kong doesn't run well on MAME. It never is really run perfectly emulated. Right. You'd have to actually get, at one point, I think they fixed it. You actually had to download little WAV files, little samples, to actually get the full effect of Donkey Kong in certain versions of MAME. I would say 10 to 15 years ago. In other words, I think the jump, when Mario walks, stuff like that, it made noises, and unless you had these extra sound effects inside your sample folder, it couldn't run. You couldn't hear it. You couldn't hear these things. So Donkey Kong never really ran. It's playable. It's more than playable, but it's not perfect, arcade perfect emulation. So the accusation is that when Billy set these records, that it was done on MAME, and why that's not so bad in itself. That would make him the Donkey Kong champion of MAME, not the Donkey Kong arcade champion. Right. It's very easy to create what they call save points, and if you go back to that save point, it's a matter of like hitting F9, and you go right back to where you did before you died, and it's a very simple video splice in Sony Vegas or any other type of thing after that. And even if that's done carefully, it's actually unnoticed. If you do it correctly, you can't be noticed. Is that essentially what Billy Mitchell has been accused of?
Well, there's quite a few theories going on. That's one of them, that he spliced his gameplay. The other thing is that MAME actually has a function that does replays built into it. So once you've played a game, it'll go back and replay itself exactly the way you did it. So some people speculate that he recorded that rather than his live gameplay. And the great thing about that is if you use those save states, it will overwrite any save states that were you played it and it's like, oh, okay, I didn't like that part of the game, so I'm going to reload this save state, play it again, and it'll overwrite anything that was played over. So that would be an easier way to do it without getting caught using splicing techniques. There's tons of theories on what he may have done, and some people even necessarily believe maybe he didn't necessarily cheat, but he did play on MAME, which that alone breaks the rules for Twin Galaxies.
No, because he's not the Donkey Kong champion; he's the MAME champion, and they do that for a reason. And they do have. And by the way, they have high scores for MAME players. You can submit a MAME score, and it's completely legitimate. And if you're submitting, top 10 scores in MAME, you probably could make the jump to arcade and be just as good. It's not like look, the only people that would notice MAME Donkey Kong play difference between are dorks like you and me. Like that's really what it comes, like old guys like me in my 40s and stuff like that are really into it and have read and know a little bit about putting arcades together, and things of that nature. Now, one of the things they know is the smoking gun, if I'm getting mistaken, is the actual loading state. The arcade cabinet loads slightly differently. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it shows the platforms first, or maybe you can correct me, but MAME loads just slightly differently. Gameplay's not any different, but it loads slightly. Could you explain that whole situation to me, as far as like what the smoking gun is? Because it looks like the load state from the game that he submitted.
Right. So essentially, when Donkey Kong loads levels, one of the main focuses that people are looking on is what's called the barrel board. That's the traditional girder stage that you always see when people look at Donkey Kong gameplay. Essentially, what happens is if you analyze that footage frame by frame, you'll see these different transitions that occur during the loading process of the board. And on a traditional Donkey Kong arcade machine, you get 5 girders on the screen that load first as the first frame of animation. With MAME, however, you get 3, and sometimes you also get a little artifact on one of those girders that people are referring to as the girder finger or the girder tail. And all of Billy's gameplay exhibits those things that you see in MAME rather than what you would see in an actual arcade capture.
And when was this particular high score submitted? What year was this high score submitted?
So he has 2 scores in question.
Okay.
He has 2 scores in question. The first one, he's claiming it was recorded in 2004, but he didn't submit the tape until 2005. And then the other one was, I believe it was.
Was that the one in King of Kong?
Yes, that was the King of Kong tape.
And by the way, I noticed there was no sound on that recording.
Right.
And if there was sound, you could have nailed down whether really easily whether it was using the samples in MAME. By the way, like I said before, you like it doesn't, especially the audio was not well emulated on MAME at that point in time. I remember that because that's when I used to download the samples to make it sound like Donkey Kong, right?
Right.
They would be able to tell like this whether that was a WAV file or that was actually the arcade emulation right there and then. It's interesting there was no sound and it was accepted at that point. So okay,
yeah, because at that point in MAME, the audio was like way off compared to, you could tell the difference instantly.
Yes,
that something wasn't right.
That was something wrong with MAME. Another thing I want to point out, if you guys have seen the movie King of Kong, and we'll get to the second part of the question I asked. I know I'm interrupting, but I'm trying to get my facts straight. What we're talking about is a movie that came out in 2005. It was called, or 2006, excuse me. I was actually in Iraq when I saw it. It was called King of Kong: A Fistful of Quarters, probably the greatest arcade documentary of all time. And what happened was Steve Wiebe, who was outside the Twin Galaxies community, started setting records on his personal Donkey Kong cabinet. All right, and then it looks like he was beating world records. Well, Twin Galaxies came down, looked at his cabinet, and said there was a gummy substance on his cabinet. And they said they wouldn't submit gummy. They didn't say what the gummy substance did. Like that. Right. What did it do? Speed up Mario or some shit? And that they couldn't set the score, so they suggested that he go to Fun Spot, which is in bumblefuck nowhere. Where is Fun Spot anyway?
It's somewhere in Florida. I'm not exactly sure where.
And for some reason, this is the high score arcade. It looks like very average arcade to me. I don't know why everybody gets so high over it. And set a live score, which he did. And what Billy did, to be a bit of a showman, right? He had already broken the record, but he kept it for himself just in case this particular situation erupted. And by the way, the woman that he gave it to, her name was Dolores. What was her name? Oh, hell.
Doris Self.
Doris Self. She was actually a friend of my mother's, if you know that. They're both Eastern Airlines.
Really?
Yes. My mom was an Eastern Airline attendant. And it was just like a weird thing. Yeah, she was like one of the best Cuber players on the planet. Even at that time.
Small world, man.
Yeah, is it weird? Doris Self, and she died shortly after the film. Unfortunately, she's been gone for about 10 years now. As being a showman, he asked, what's the score? It was lower than the one that he had already previously, and they put it on there. But that particular score had no sound, and that was bizarre. So that very possibly could have been MAME too. What is the second score that you were talking about that was submitted?
The second score, it was a 1.050 million score, and this was one that he supposedly performed live. There were people that seen him perform it live, but they were capturing it at that time. And so there's questions about that one as well, because looking at the tape that they captured, it exhibits, signatures of MAME as well. So both of these tapes are exhibiting signatures of MAME, which is really questionable.
What do you personally believe? Is he cheating?
I don't necessarily know if he cheated per se, but it's pretty obvious that he used MAME. And some would say, why else would you use MAME unless you were going to cheat? Because MAME does have the functionality to use cheats built into it. So I think it's very possible, but at the very least, we know for a fact he used MAME up to this point.
Yeah. No, I think that's by itself, that disqualifies him.
Yeah, because that disqualifies based on the rules per submission. If he was submitting to MAME scores, totally fine. Yeah. But he was submitting for real arcade hardware scores, and that's
and he also sat on the board when Steve Wiebe's score was rejected 10 years ago. He actually sat on that.
He was part of administration there.
Yeah. And we've also discovered that Billy's basically been keeping this organization, Twin Galaxies, this legendary organization that I used to read about in Nintendo Power, Twin Galaxies, when I was a kid, afloat. And that creates some type of problem. And I remember, like, one morning you, I was dropping my kid off, and you were like, look at this shit, Tommy. And it was an article, it's like a hit piece on Apollo Legend. Like,
oh my God,
here's a guy that's. I mean, it was just typical fucking. It was almost like Keemstar shit, you know. Like it was. It was like thank you, Gamer Jaylee. I appreciate the buck. It was almost like typical. There's a guy trying to build his name around Billy Mitchell. Wait a minute, he's already built his name prior to that in his own YouTube world on speedruns. And he had also exposed other speedrunners, so he wasn't hitching his trailer on Billy Mitchell. Surely that's a big takedown, and that's what his channel's become. But there was absolutely, like, look at this kid trying to catch our hero, and actually gave no credence to the actual accusations. Which, by the way, Apollo Legends accusations are really strong. You know, they're exceptionally strong. And then shortly after that, we hear, and Apollo hasn't tweeted since February. As far as I know, at least on his front page. And we started hearing, you know, rumors of a lawsuit. Now, you have talked to Apollo Legend recently. Is there a lawsuit?
There is no lawsuit currently, but they are threatening him with a potential lawsuit at this time.
They're barking. They're never going to sue him.
Yeah, exactly.
They're never, and I think he knows that at this point.
It's the same thing as the Joel West situation that's going on in the dispute thread right now. I'm sure you've heard about that.
Joel West has got involved. Now, he was in a movie. Joel West, he was in a movie called Chasing Ghosts, which is sort of the I don't know, the sister film to Donkey Kong. Stevie Weeby makes a very short appearance in it. That's Joel West right there. And he actually he was actually one of the more interesting people interviewed in the whole in the entire film. It's a really great movie, Chasing Ghosts, Beyond the Arcade. That's him right there. And he says he can prove that Billy didn't cheat, and what is his basis for that?
Literally all he's saying is that he has some affidavits from some eyewitnesses that claim that they were there, they saw the score played, and they're willing to testify in court should it come to that. You know, if they go to court, that they'll testify that they saw Billy play, but that doesn't really prove anything. I mean, we have the video evidence showing that this looks like MAME, this doesn't look like MAME, these two things don't add up. So witness testimony doesn't matter at that point. We have the evidence that shows otherwise.
Yeah, we do have physical evidence that shows that he's using MAME. Basically, he's trying to get him off on witness test. They have no, let me get it straight. Joel West, and I don't know why he's doing that. That might work in a court of law. But, I mean, look, if Billy Mitchell's a cheater or not, he didn't break any laws. I don't know why a witness testimony would be satisfactory, or are they just trying to give Twin Galaxies a reason to give him a pass?
Yeah, pretty much. They're trying to put the pressure on them. They're saying that they want to basically push for a defamation of character lawsuit against Twin Galaxies, because all this whole ordeal is basically making Billy look bad, and it's ruining his reputation, which none of this is making him look bad. The fact that he used MAME is making himself look bad. It was a matter of time before he got caught up for it.
Now, here's a name I hadn't heard in a while. His name is Jace Hall. Jace made these really funny rap videos about 10 years ago about almost 10 years ago, about World of Warcraft. Now, is he the current owner of Twin Galaxies?
Yes, he is the current owner, and he's head of the administration team at the moment. Okay,
how is he handling this? Because this has got to be putting him in a bad situation. I don't get the feeling that Jace is a bad guy, and he probably took on this responsibility. You know, I think like a lot of us would in our age brackets, we look at Twin Galaxy as they're the record keepers. This is something. This is an institution worth preserving. How has he behaved himself in this whole ordeal?
You know, early on, I kind of was really losing my faith in Twin Galaxies as an organization because it just seemed like they weren't handling the situation very well. They were delaying it at every chance they got. But then Jace Hall did a live stream, I want to say about a month ago on Facebook, where he was analyzing Billy's tapes live and in real time for an audience to see. Yeah, you should check out those streams if you haven't. It's amazing.
No kidding.
It's like 4+ hours long. So if you got the time, check it out. But he was making notes of everything as it happened. Wow, this is a weird anomaly. We need to look into this.
Okay.
There were odd things that were discovered in the tapes, and he made note of that in real time for the whole audience to see.
Just
so
so that he's doing something, and I give a shit about this.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, he's doing his due diligence, and he's being very transparent with the community, which I really appreciate.
Do you think it's the type of situation where the Billy's just poured too much money into this, and they're damned if they do, and they're damned if they don't? If they say Billy Mitchell's a cheater, it's going to ruin his business, because the thing is, his hot sauce business is tied to the fact that he is one of the all-time great gamers. I mean, that's not an exaggeration. He's one of those guys, and he sells the Billy Mitchell. I mean, I always thought, you know, a lot of the things that he did, especially in this movie in Beyond the Arcade, were a bit exaggerated deliberately, and the movie made it make him look like a guy worse than he was, when he was really just trying to be an entertaining character, not unlike Dr. Disrespect. I know for a fact, because I used to listen to this this podcast years ago. It was called Retro Gaming Radio, and they were interviewing Billy and Steve prior to the movie coming out, right? They were getting along fine. So the movie completely misleads you into Steve and Steve and Billy being at each other's throats. It's edited in such a manner. So I always thought this is kind of a movie that just, they needed a bad guy. But it's really looking like Billy's a bad guy, and that good old boys club is very much alive, and that was accurately depicted in the video. Is that the case? Is this a boys club? And they're just, if Jace says, you know what, Billy, we're washing our hands of you, they're going to lose it. If they keep him, everybody's going to lose respect for him. They're going to lose it. I mean, what does Jace do from here, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, like you referred to, a boys club going on there where everybody's kind of buddy-buddy. People, you know, they're friends with, like, the referees at Twin Galaxies, and they get their scores approved through them, and everybody just kind of looks out for everyone. It is that sort of thing, but since Jace took over, they don't play that game no more, and so he takes it a lot more seriously. He has a much better system of verification in place, where the community takes part in the verification. It's not just, you know, some referee who says, oh, this score looks good, so I'm going to go ahead and approve it or whatever. Jace Hall doesn't play that way, where it's like an in club and everybody gets special treatment. So this is kind of like the last part of it, where Billy is the top dog in terms of these idols, and Jace isn't looking to, you know, save Billy's ass or anything like that. Whatever the evidence shows, that's what Jace is going to go with.
Oh, you really think so? So if that be the case, do you think Billy Mitchell will get the same punishment as Todd Rogers?
I don't know if he would get the same punishment, because the Todd Rogers situation was interesting, where not only was he found to be cheating on a handful of scores, but he also was a referee, and he was found to be entering his own scores as well.
Yeah.
So that brought into question the legitimacy of his scores. So because they couldn't verify, they don't keep a record of who verified this score and who entered this score. At least they didn't at the time. There was no way to find out which scores did he enter or which scores were verified by a third party. So they had to just go scorched earth and remove them all. So it was very different with Todd Rogers.
Okay.
I don't necessarily think they'll remove every score of Billy's. I just think they'll remove the scores in question.
You know, dragging this out like the way they did and becomes irrefutable, is there any reason to keep him around? I mean, I would be for a lifetime ban. And I don't really see, with, you know, Overwatch League, maybe even an older gamer that got famous like Fatality. I don't know if Twin Galaxies needs a figurehead like Billy Mitchell as much as they might think. They could wrap their arms around guys that already have names, guys like Fatality, Nade Shot, stuff like that. That could be their guy for competitive gaming. They don't necessarily need a retro guy. In fact, I think what's happened is, since after the movie, retro gaming has become a lot more mainstream. Donkey Kong has become the creme de la creme. It was that way beforehand, the creme de la creme. And you're getting millennials that know a lot more about computers than probably Billy Mitchell does, and a lot of like Todd Rogers, and they're just so used to getting away with this shit and being the smartest cats in the room that they simply can't beat a guy like Apollo Legend, who I assume probably has some programming background and things like that. And if he doesn't, more than likely others do. Is that what's just the old guard always been cheating, and it's always been this shady, and now it's over because the kids, the 20-year-olds, they know more about the game than more than likely the guys that are the record holders?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's always been a case of them cheating. Like, I know a lot of people think I have it out for Billy Mitchell, but one thing I'll say outright is I'm not questioning the fact that he's a legitimately good player.
Oh, God.
I think he is a legitimately good player. I just think the theory I've always had that is if he used MAME to cheat, it's like steroids in, you know, professional sports or whatever. You know, they don't use steroids to get into the sport. They use steroids to get that extra edge once they've reached their peak. And I think if Billy did use MAME to cheat, that's why he was using it, so he can get that extra edge. And I think that there potentially were other players that were doing the same thing.
Well, you know, I also get the feeling, too, that, you know, you see these guys retire. Now that we have a legitimate esports, there wasn't really a lot of money in esports. There wasn't too many guys who were professional video game players. In fact, the thought of that in the 80s, 90s was completely and utterly ridiculous. People don't realize, like, when me and Tipster grew up, if you said something like, I want to be a professional video game player, your parents might lock you up, you know. It's not even that much of an exaggeration. There was no place, there was no world for this. But I get and I watched so many of these guys in Overwatch League, and God, they're retired by the time they're 23, 24. What, they got sick of playing? No, they can't do it. Those fine motor skills are probably gone. Billy Mitchell at 50 or 40 years old is probably not as good, not as physically capable, can't stay away from you. You know, a lot of some of these classic arcade games, they could take up to 24 hours to even get a shot or a crack at a world record. Am I exactly with a game like Missile Command or something like that? I mean, I've heard stories about guys putting catheters in so they can stay up. I've heard stories. I've never seen any proof. Maybe you do know a specific example. This is, you might laugh, but setting a record like this, not so much Donkey Kong, because Donkey Kong conks out after about 2.5 hours, right?
Yeah.
This is, you need to be in shape to do something. Some of them, it depends on the game, right? You need to be in shape. You need to be wired in. We're seeing drug abuse in parts of pro gaming in the past with Adderall and stuff like that. It's completely conceivable that Billy just cannot deal with the fact that he is not the best player in the world because he simply got old. You know, and you can't do it at that level. Do you think there's anything to that?
Yeah, and I see a lot of people asking, like, why doesn't he just do it again?
He can't.
And I've been saying that, and I said the same thing for Todd Rogers. Like, he can't just do it again because as you get older, I mean, I've witnessed it myself. I'm only 31, and games that I used to play really well as a kid, I can't play them so well anymore. Yeah. And by the way, you just lose that edge after a while.
By the way, Tipster has you had a world record, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, I have 4, and I'm in the top, or 3, and I'm in the top 5 for 1.
So like and these all have been verified. You didn't do Adderall. Nobody's questioned legitimacy of them or anything like that. No, so
I don't know. After everything that I've, after me putting Twin Galaxies through the ringer, maybe they're going to start questioning my scores now.
My point, and when you go up to set these scores, this is a whole planned day. This is like I'm managing myself. You just flip it on, set the world record, and walk. This is something you really have to be mentally ready to handle when things go wrong and then restarting and all that stuff. This is a big event when you go to set these records, correct? It could be pretty taxing if I'm not I know to a lot of people this sounds completely ridiculous, but this is a taxing event, correct?
It really depends on the game you're playing. Like for my particular games, like I just, I recorded my gameplay and I submitted it to him via DVD. So mine was fairly easy. I mean, granted, I did invest a lot of time in practicing the games and stuff like that. And then when I finally did sit down to record my gameplay and set the score, yeah, there was a lot of times where I messed up and I had to restart the game. And you have to restart the whole system because they want to see the boot up process of the system to make sure you're not using cheats and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a very taxing process, but depending on what game you choose, it could be far more than that. I mean, we're looking at some games, for example, Nibbler. If you want to get a high score on the arcade game Nibbler, it can take up to 72 hours of gameplay.
How do you do
sometimes?
How do you do that without falling asleep?
Honestly, I couldn't do it. I don't know how these people do it. I really don't.
Yeah, I'm a little suspicious when anybody over 40 can do it. I got your news for you right there. I'm just like immediately suspicious.
I don't know how old Tim McVeigh is. He's the current, he's one of the top score guys for Nibbler.
Didn't he blow up the FBI? Didn't he blow up the FBI building? Do you have the right guy? Isn't that the guy that blew up the FBI building?
No. It's not that.
The other Tim McVeigh. Sorry.
It's another Tim McVeigh.
All right, sorry.
Everybody has to clear that up whenever his name comes up.
Tim McVeigh's coming to our next game convention. No! No.
There's a documentary about him, and he mentions that in that documentary where he always has to clear up, I'm not that Tim McVeigh. That one's called Man vs. Snake, The Long and Twisted Tale of Nibbler.
And this does it. So to lock you up, motor skills shot out at 23. No. Fine motor skills. The motor skills you need to set a world record. You know, that's what I'm talking about. Obviously, no, I mean, not your motor skill. I mean, guys play professional sports at the top level. Jaromir Jagr, he's like 46. He's finally retiring from the NHL. I mean, it does depend on the individual, but for the most part, you can't compete at these high-level tournaments. Why? And if you think guys think I'm crazy, why is FaZe Adapt still not in the tournament scene? Why is FaZe Sensor not in the tournament scene? They're done. They're finished. And it's probably
they're just vloggers now.
And you know what? It's a better move. One of the things I have a lot of respect for Banks, he gave these guys a retirement home on YouTube. It was brilliant. You know, I mean, the way he set these guys up long after their you know, and it sucks because I watch Fatality on Twitch, and he only pulls like, which is pretty good, only 200 or 300. You know? Yeah,
this dude used to be the top of like the competitive gaming scene in his day, and now hardly anybody knows who he is. You mentioned him, and like most people are like, "Who's that?"
Because he's 37, so he's ancient to these kids, but nobody knows that he really built and he paved the way for MLG and the EDL, or what's it called? The one in Europe, I always forget. ESL. Yeah, he paved the way. Fatality is the one that told his parents, "I want to go pro because I can win these tournaments." And he was the one. Like there's a whole there's movies about, there's like documentaries about what the first person shooter scene was like in the 90s and early 2000s. And your parents would stop talking to you. Like there was a whole bunch of shit, you know, because they didn't understand that there was this world of professional, and Fatality dominated from the top down. He went through all the blood, sweat, and tears. Family turned his back on him, and everything. To really pave what you see for Banks and guys like Nade Shot and other guys that are really mainstream now, that are doing stuff.
At least he was smart about it though. Like he invested the money he earned into other businesses and stuff. Nowadays, you see these competitive gamers. Once their career as a competitive gamer is over, that's it. They're done. But he was smart about it.
Oh my God, Tim McVeigh's in the chat. He's 50.
Oh, man. I knew he was, like, around his 50s. I didn't know exactly. What's up, man?
Yeah, Tim McVeigh in the chat. Nice to meet you, sir.
Don't blow up any buildings, buddy.
No. God, I bet he hates that. You know, like some
I bet he does, too.
Like some asshole like me, like, oh, I should have got that blew up the
paint. Well, you're the one who initially brought it up, man, so.
Yeah, I know. Because I'm an asshole. Tim McVeigh. Why don't you be Timothy McVeigh or Timmy McVeigh, which is funny.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Bump. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's I'm Timothy McVeigh. Then nobody will, you know, nobody will screw that up.
Right.
What's the end result for Billy? Is he gonna get thrown out of Twin Galaxies? Is there gonna be a punishment? Are those scores gonna be removed? What do you think the end result here is?
I mean, based on the evidence we have, based on everything we've seen, in my opinion, that's the only solution, resolution to this situation that should happen. If Twin Galaxies goes otherwise, I mean, there's obviously something crooked going on over there. And that's why when a lot of people ask me, oh, you know, like, Jace is being really transparent and everything, is this restoring your faith in Twin Galaxies? Because I was very public with the fact that I said that I'm losing faith in this organization. If they go the other way and they save his ass, like, it's very obvious that they're a crooked organization. But I think the only way to go is that, he used MAME. Boot his scores.
Boot his scores. But what about what about a serious punishment like Todd Rogers got?
My opinion, and this is probably going to be controversial for some of the people who really want to see Billy burn, is I just think they should pull those scores.
Okay.
At this point in time, there are no questions about the other scores. Maybe something will surface later, but at this moment in time, nobody's questioning his other scores.
Pull the scores, and we'll have to pull this. Does he does still have a legit score that's not being contested that made him the world champion at one time, correct?
Yeah, he's got like a 933,000 or something like that.
Yeah, but God.
So I think they should just revert to that one personally.
Just revert to that one, which puts him in like the top 20 anyway. Yeah, but it doesn't make him one of the best of all time. You know.
Yeah. I mean, granted, he's not the best of all time right now in that score. Well, he's not the current record holder.
Steve Wiebe, has he been vocal about? Has he spoke out on any of these issues? I wonder. I can't imagine he's not following this.
He tends to keep to himself, from what I understand. So I haven't heard anything from him. Maybe he's talking to people in private about it, but he hasn't said anything publicly. I mean, the guy's not a very public guy to begin with, to be honest.
No, but, but it did show like this guy's a family guy. He's a little different, but he's a very talented guy in a lot of different areas, everywhere from music to academia to.
I mean, unlike the rest
sports.
of them, he's not a complete nut job where these high scores mean everything to him. He's not like that.
His kids mean everything to his family. His wife means everything to him. But I remember like watching him cry, and I was like, I gotta be honest, like I would have cried too, if I got shown up like that, you know. Because I have a little bit of an idea. I mean, let me say something, guys. Like Tipster, like you guys watch me stream, and it's all jokes because I suck at just about everything. Tipster here is actually pretty good, and what happens is when you run with a crowd with these retro gamers, you tend to get better. You know, if you're setting a world record just about in any game, I'm sure there's some games that are considered not as cool to set a world record in than others, but you know, setting a world record is really something. So Tipster's pretty good. Press 1 and Tommy's a cuck. All right, there you go. All right, why is this important? Why do people care? Because by the way, congratulations on 20,000 subs. You've been
thanks,
cracking
buddy.
it a long time. You put a lot of effort into what you do. And you cracked 20. I know it meant a lot to you. You're averaging 50 a day. I checked, and you've had several hundred and 200 plus days in the last 28. Why do you think people care about this so much? Like, why is this important? Why are we not just like two dorky nerds talking about something that's like insignificant or irrelevant? Why is this important?
I mean, there's kind of two discussions here in terms of why is this important to normal people, like you know, people who aren't trying to set the scores themselves, and then there's the question of why is it important to them, the high score holders. For the normies, it's a historical record thing, and when you're looking at historical records, you want to make sure that's accurate.
Sure. And
so if there's any question whatsoever that one of these scores is falsified or fraudulent, you want to make sure that that's accurate, and you want to look into it. So for the normies, that's why this is important. For those record holders, like I said, these are a bunch of people who, outside of retro gaming, they're nobody. Gotcha. Their life has no significance whatsoever. They're just average, everyday Joes, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, I could even say that about myself, right? But their high score, that gives them something special about them. And so if they lose that, then suddenly they don't matter anymore. At least in their eyes, that's the way they see it. So for them, it's extremely important because their life has no meaning without it. It's kind of sad, really.
I think it's like, I don't know why it's so important to me. I mean, this is something I would normally laugh at other people. Like, you know, when I see nerds get in debate, nothing makes me giggle more than that. And I'm always goofing on Dave and shit when he starts talking about his nerdy shit. But I'm pretty nerdy myself, as you well know. And, but I gotta be honest with you, and you can goof at me all you want. I think this is important, that this particular organization and its history, and it's had its problems over the last 30 years, pushing 40. I want them to clear this up, or I want Twin Galaxies to be blown out, and I want it to be put in the dustbin of history, and I want these young guys taking over, and I want them to come up with a system that makes it more difficult for cheaters. I don't want a guy who runs a hot sauce joint down in Florida deciding who gets in and who doesn't. I mean, how much you want to bet that way more people knew about Todd Rogers cheating for the last 20, 30 years and having that much influence on Twin Galaxies? Because I remember watching the videos on YouTube, right after King of Kong came out. And there was just like, the whole thing is just filled with really petty, extremely petty disputes and accusations of cheating. It just seems like it's maybe been going on a long time. I mean, I can't remember the gentleman's name, even back in the day when the picture was taken. What's his name? He's a lawyer now. Steve, Billy's close friend.
I think it's Steve Sanders.
Steve Sanders, yeah. I mean, he had to come clean with cheating allegations and things of that nature. I mean, I think they really have to do, at very least, remove the scores. I would actually like to see a total ban from the top down. And then I think we in the gaming community, maybe even it would be nice, some of like the MLG types, the guys that are really making serious cash in esports, they're going to have to get behind Twin Galaxies and support them, because Billy's going to come after them.
Yeah.
You know,
and I think that's kind of why Jace got involved, because, you know, he's got involvement in like esports and stuff. And I think he kind of wanted to, you know, revitalize the organization in terms of making sure it's more credible, because they have been questioned a lot recently. And so I think that, you know, that's part of why he took over. Not only that, but I think he does want to acknowledge younger players of more modern games as well.
Sure.
Where, yeah, Twin Galaxies track scores for newer games and speed runs and stuff like that for newer games, but they don't give it as much attention as the retro stuff. And I think that's kind of what Jace wants to do.
The retro. So as much as I love the retro stuff, it'll still be there. But I think it's more important to promote pro gamers in the modern age. Otherwise, this isn't gonna grow. And it gets, I mean, I have more Twitter followers than Twin Galaxy. How is that possible?
Yeah, that's pretty sad. Yeah, it's all fine and dandy if you want to promote these legends of gaming, these founders of esports, as some people refer to it as. That's cool and all, but you also have to acknowledge the current day competitors as well.
And you have to eliminate the guys who are cheats, and in some cases, some of these guys are low lives. Some of these guys are bad. Like, one of the reasons I was really into DJ Wheat's esports show back in 2010, called Live on 3. I don't know if you know who Slasher is. He does a lot of esports reporting. He's got the Quake symbol in his Rod Baslu or something like that. And one of the reasons that initially turned me away from esports was the way the kids acted. You know, they you know, slamming, breaking shit. Yeah, I think it's okay if you do that in your own time, but when you're in a professional event, I think you got to show some type of sportsmanship. And esports is severely lacked sportsmanship, I think, up until recently with the Overwatch League, because they're actually punishing these guys now.
Right.
And you know, I think it would be really nice to promote some of these new guys and also hold them accountable and hold the old guys accountable too. I never heard anything about Fatality is the guy they should be wrapping their arms around, if you ask me.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
He's a good guy. He's a good businessman, and it might to promote and make him the figurehead and show all his incredible accomplishments. Kids will more likely connect because he did first-person shooters, you know, and that this generation is well familiar with first-person shooters, and I think it is important to keep this institution. Has there been any Walter Day, the founder of this organization? I don't think he has any interest in it anymore. Not power or interest in it anymore, other than being in the logo. Has Walter spoke out in this situation, because he does have a close relationship with Billy?
He did appear at a panel. They had a panel at the latest Kong Off event. That's an event where a lot of champions and Donkey Kong play together. Billy was there, and they actually had a panel there where they were discussing the situation, and they initially talked about how they were investigating in Billy's defense to try and prove that he was innocent at the time. Walter gave a brief statement there, but honestly, it was just kind of like fluff. It was basically like, I've known Billy for a long time. I haven't known him to cheat, and I believe that he's innocent, that sort of thing. But nothing really tangible.
He didn't attack Apollo Legend or anything.
Pretty much.
You know, also talking about what Apollo Legend is, and I wish I had clipped this. There is a Fatality movie out there, by the way, Tim. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
And by the way, he's a great guy. He's like a really cool guy. You know, he's got a lot of stories to tell, I'm sure. I mean, Fatality's just got an interesting story all around.
Right.
Did Apollo Legend went to an event, and I didn't elaborate before on what the lawsuit could be about, that he snuck into some type of event. He dressed like Billy, and then he asked him very pointed questions. Why did it look like you were using MAME and stuff, things of that nature? What was that particular event and that Apollo Legend went to? Was that the Kong Off that you're talking about?
That was not the Kong Off. My understanding is that was just some little gathering or whatever at like a local arcade. I'm not exactly sure, but it wasn't like a big event that was like this huge like open public thing or whatever. There were a few people there. I mean, if you look at the video clips that Apollo allowed me to share, it didn't look like there were a lot of people there.
No.
So I'm not super knowledgeable what that event was, but my understanding is he was invited there, even though they're trying to push it like, oh, he snuck in he secretly recorded us, stuff like that.
They have a cameraman there. I mean, how could they secretly record? It's very clear that they're allowing filming in there. No one tells him at any point in this particular video to take it down. It seems like Billy is aware, and it's not like they, you know, Apollo was asking some pretty to the point questions. Billy didn't seem to get rattled by it. It didn't seem to be very uncomfortable. or at least they were playing it. They didn't give him any information, which wasn't a surprise. Right. But it's not like there was no hostility on either end, other than possibly Apollo's very poignant questions, which were never answered.
Yeah, you look at those clips, it completely debunks everything that they were claiming. They claimed that he filmed them without their knowledge. He was wearing a wire. He snuck into the event. It's like you're not all handshakes and taking selfies with each other when someone sneaks into an event to try and expose you. That's not how you act with someone.
I don't want to get you in trouble with Apollo. I know you've been talking with him. Why hasn't he tweeted? How come he's maintaining a low profile? If you can reveal that.
Based on the conversation we had, it was like very brief, so I kind of get the inkling that he was busy or he couldn't talk all that much.
Okay.
But I didn't get an opportunity to ask him that. My only speculation is that he did mention he was consulting with a lawyer just in case some legal action happens. So maybe the lawyer just told him to keep quiet for now.
Just keep quiet, because like I said, he hasn't tweeted since February. I mean, got this ball rolling.
Yeah, pretty much.
By the way, I have looked at Apollo stuff, and so I've actually went back because he's part of the speedrunning community. If you don't know what that is, it's just like I think it started with Quake 1. Where guys,
and that's why he went after Todd I shouldn't say went after, but that's why he covered Todd, because technically his score is a speed run.
Oh, with Dragster, the dumbest game ever made. I hate that game. My thumbs.
It's such a stupid game.
My thumbs hurt just fucking thinking about it. It makes me angry. For Christ's sake.
I have that game somewhere in my collection, and honestly, the only reason I have it is because I bought a big box of Atari games and it was in there, because I have no intention of playing that fucking game.
It sucks.
Yeah.
You want to play I never back in the 80s. Like, you want to play Dragster? No. And as great as Activision was, I mean, Activision was a great game company. I mean, their games like Pitfall and stuff was like way ahead. You had a lot of squares and stupid shit. Like, what the fuck is that playing Atari 2600? What's that supposed to be? A lot of blocky pixels, but games like Pitfall, and I'm trying to think some other Activision 2600 games. They were always like, if you had an Activision game for 2600, it was elite. As far as it pushed what the processing power could do, and well, shit, that's not much of a processor by today's standards.
But Dragster's definitely a weak game. I like to equate it to premature ejaculation.
Yeah, I know.
You get into the action, and it's over before you know it.
I wonder how many people, like young people in the audience, have ever actually played. Because I got to be honest, this is something I don't like doing. I don't like playing retro games with. I don't like playing retro games with old joysticks. They hurt my hands. I just like. Do you play with when you play 2600? Do you play with the 2600 joystick or do you play with
I do play with the classic joystick,
I can't do it.
I use a classic joystick.
Also, I wanted to make a recommendation to you. I don't know if you saw it, but look at your Twitter right now. I think I got the greatest peripheral. I just want to show off of all time. I got this right here. This is, in my opinion, the greatest peripheral I've ever bought in my entire life. And it is a Korean-style Atoki Omni arcade stick, right? And the reason it's so great is because you know that the Japanese one, they have it's sort of when you push these things, it's like a square, like it's square. It's to get the the Hadoukens and Dragon Punches or whatever the fuck they call them. But the reason I went with this is because this is, if you look, it's completely circular, so it feels like the old Marvel vs. Capcom joystick, which basically is it's good. This thing's good for MAME, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Plus,
absolutely,
2600. I love this thing. I'm not getting any money for this. I love this fucking thing. I mean, I like to touch it. I like to look at it. It's my favorite thing ever. And I'm gonna make these buttons red because yellow's kind of gay. But I'm actually gonna learn. I have a book on building cabinets. So I'm gonna do that for a hobby soon too. This is, if I spent, and I had to pay custom fees too. I spent like $300, 300 euros in this, and I highly, highly recommend this. You will never play MAME with anything else again because it feels like an old stick. It's amazing. I love this goddamn thing.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, the Foursquare. This is round. This is circular. It's circular. So like the Korean one feels like the stuff that I grew up with, Tim. The Korean stuff. And what is Tim's relationship to this situation?
I mean, he's just one of the classic gamers. He's the one I told you was playing Nibbler or whatever. He's known for Nibbler, so he's one of the classic gaming all-stars.
And he's 50, and he thinks he could set another record. God, he's a better man than me because I don't think I could physically. If I don't have the skills, Like, I think you have the skills, and I think you got to get in shape. I think your cardio has got to be good if you're going to be doing that. And you got to do a lot of, not heroin, Ritalin or what do they do? Adderall. Tim McVeigh does Adderall. You know,
I'll have to talk to him sometime, see how he does it, man. Because I can't. I mean, I did a 24-hour live stream on Twitch, and that was hard for me. This guy's, what is it, multiple days sitting in front of an arcade machine. That's crazy.
What do you think?
I don't know how you can stay up that long.
It's retro gaming, speed running, modern gaming, esports, what's popular online, Steam, modern consoles. How do you feel overall about the state of gaming right now? Is it good, bad? Are you indifferent about it? Are you only in one part of it? Because I consider myself, I'm a cartridge flipper. I literally, I still am to this day. That's why I created the arcade channel, so I could just constantly switch, right? And now my dreams have come true. I can play any game I want from any generation, and I can flip on PlayStation 4. What do you think the state of gaming is? Not so much for the industry. We know that's good, but for the player, is this a good time to be in gaming in general?
I'm kind of mixed on it because, I mean, we have a lot of neat gameplay experiences coming out. The independent development scene is awesome, and they're coming out with lots of unique gaming ideas. But on the flip side, you have the companies, taking advantage of the players with microtransactions, ridiculous DLC just for the hell of it, and, just nickel and diming the consumer. So from the perspective of gameplay experiences, it's awesome. There's lots of great gameplay experiences out there. Technology's come a long way in terms of what we can do for the games, but they're just nickel and diming us, and it's pretty ridiculous, to be honest.
So you're one of these people that's just sick of people like EA. They're the ones that are. And I agree with you. I think they're going to kill the goose to lay the golden egg.
And to be fair, I don't mind like if somebody creates like some kind of DLC where you get a decent amount of additional content for a fair price. I don't mind that. But when you're nickel and diming me, or it's like you literally have to pay money to get an advantage in the game, like that's pretty ridiculous to me.
I think Tony D2 Wild, because I love Tony D2 Wild. It's great to be a gamer, but it's way easier to get scammed on games promises. Yeah, it's like this. Like so, like you
pretty much.
Quake? Remember Quake? I mean, we made our own stuff. We made our own levels. We made our own mods.
Heck yeah.
Nowadays, it's like if you want to stay competitive, you pretty much better be giving us $20 at least $20 every 3-4 months, even though you probably dropped anywhere from $100 to $60. Do you think do you think the blowback on Star Wars is going to have a positive impact, because they've never seen any blowback like that before? I was
just going to mention Star Wars, because that was like the big one where a lot of games were doing it, but the way Star Wars did it was nuts. What did they find out? That like you can grind as a player to get the stuff that you could buy to give you that advantage, but it's going to take you 40 hours of gameplay to grind and get that stuff, whereas you could pay them some money and get that stuff instantly and have an unfair advantage in the game. That's insane. And like that's just I don't approve of that at all. I didn't buy that game because of that.
I did, because I wanted to play the single player, but I waited till after they pulled though. Have they reintroduced the pay to win functions in that? Because I've only played it like I got through the first couple levels. I'm going to finish it one day, and I always put everything off. Or they have left the crystals, I think it was called. Have they gotten rid of the pay to win options?
Last update I saw, they recently pushed out an update for the game, and it was or they were planning on pushing an update out. They were basically releasing the patch notes. No introduction of play to win stuff again, and they were just balancing the game, because when they broke a lot of that functionality, a lot of the balancing was thrown off. So they are balancing the game a little bit.
How do you feel like a game like Fortnite that basically gives it away, and what they survive on cosmetic features? I mean, I think that's the future of gaming. I mean, we've seen other examples, but no one's able to nail it down like Fortnite have. This is a positive, I would think, correct?
I think so. I see a lot of people who they look at it as, if your game is doing microtransactions, like your game sucks, and you're just like screwing your player base.
I am not against microtransactions. I am against and I tell you, I want to yell at some gamers out there. Don't fuck microtransactions up. Don't let the Belgian court say it's gambling, because it's going to fuck all of us. These games are going to drop to $100 a pop like that. But I definitely am against pay to win. A business model like Fortnite is just perfect, and I wonder if others should follow.
Yeah, and that's the important thing, is people need to be able to distinguish the difference between you're paying $60 for a game, but they're still charging you for microtransactions. That's bad. But if it's a free-to-play game, you download it completely free. You get it completely free, and you're funding the company through these microtransactions. That's fine. Yeah. I'm totally fine with that, dude.
You're almost kind of obligated to buy a goddamn if they're giving a game like that for free, a quality game for free. You probably should pick up some stuff to show some support. Especially if you're giving these ridiculous hours to Fortnite. All right, now Fortnite as a game, how do you feel about that?
I hate battle royale games.
Why?
I really do.
Yeah.
I just can't get into it. I really can't.
I gotta be honest with you. I don't know. I was not mad that you didn't like Fortnite. I'm having trouble connected. I'm getting a little better at it. I'm just not connected. I'm not getting the warm fuzzies that I got with H1Z1 when it was first released and PUBG, because I got the warm fuzzies with them. I never got the warm fuzzies with this game, even though I totally respect the building mechanic and everything else. I think that's what makes it interesting. Great. I like watching people play it, like Ninja. Right? It's very, very entertaining to watch people play, but I just don't. I'm just kind of like, it's just kind of a game. I don't know. Yeah. I'm surprised.
I couldn't get into it because like the first 10 to 20 minutes of gameplay, it's dead. You're just like scavenging for items, and that's boring. It takes a while to actually get into the action. I couldn't. I couldn't get into
constant. You rather have play a game like COD then?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like COD either. I kind of fell off with that series after Call of Duty Ghosts.
Okay.
That game was terrible. But having said that, I like that instant action. Just dropped right into the action.
Overwatch. How do you feel about Overwatch?
I like Overwatch. Overwatch is good. I don't play it a ton, but I enjoy it.
I love Overwatch. I like watching Overwatch. Like the teamwork thing is amazing. Blizzard makes the best games in the world, if you ask me.
Oh yeah, they make good games.
Yeah, it's just amazing what those guys can do. Even the stupid card game is a little pay to winish, but I mean it's a damn good game.
Their games are really addictive, man.
They really are. They're just. It's like when you get a game from Blizzard, it's like I'm in this Jewish family ran a bakery far from me. They treated everything they baked like fine works of art, and they were really serious with it. And you know what? They wouldn't sell you something if they didn't think it was expensive. If they didn't think you were going to appreciate what they were doing, right?
Absolutely.
And that's the way I feel about Blizzard. It's just that it's just so far. I mean, they could have left that game alone. It was fine a year ago, but they're always giving you something, and it's just making things interesting and stuff like that.
There's only a handful of developers that operate on they don't do deadlines. They operate on the it's done when it's done model of designing games, and Blizzard's one of those companies, and that's what makes their game so great. They don't conform to deadlines. They finish the game when they finish the game, and that's that. So you get a quality product.
Last question for you. How the fuck do you like how much I know? I bet you didn't think I knew as much as you did. I bet you're surprised. You better give me props.
I'll be honest, man. I didn't peg you as a gamer at all. I know you do your gaming live streams and whatnot, but
you thought I did not just sucking in the bucks, didn't you? Just sucking those donations out there, didn't you?
yeah, pretty much.
Jumping on that normie, jumping on the train, that lucky motherfucker that keeps.
Yeah, I didn't think you knew as much as you knew.
I have actually spent because the first thing I did when I got some money is I wanted to stream because I've been watching it. And I have spent really the last better part of a year and a half trying to prove to my fans that I am not just jumping on this. I'm a fan. I couldn't afford to do this. And now I can, and it's friggin' great. You see this goddamn joystick? I love this thing. I talk to my wife about it. I love this thing.
And she probably didn't give a fuck, right?
No. I didn't give a rat's ass. She's like, yeah, that's great.
When I talk to my wife about gaming stuff, it's the same thing. And the funny thing is, my wife plays video games, but when I talk to her about gaming stuff, it's just like, whew, she doesn't care.
She's like, I like games too. Shut the fuck up. You know? I mean, I'm looking at this stuff. This is like a perfect setup. I literally just my pants looking when I got this cool microphone. I got this kick-ass PC. I got the joystick. I got I got a PlayStation. All I gotta do is flip a switch. And I can get it up there, and all I got to do is flip on OBS, and bang, 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 bang. I'm in there like swimwear on a fat chick. You know.
Sounds like the only thing you need is some cough syrup, man.
Yes, I don't know what that's. You know what it is? It's getting hot in here because it's getting warm over here. You live in LA or something, right?
Yeah, in the greater LA area. Yeah.
Would you go to one of Paul's streams and yell, "Shot for the point, bitch!" Ah! You think
who's that?
Fucking Ice Poseidon. Will you do that for me?
Oh, if I ever run into him, I'll do that.
Just go, ah! And I'll pull his jersey.
When I'm rolling through his area, I'll make sure to wear this hoodie so I can do that, man.
Yes, act like a real jerk. Yeah, really show up those guys. Listen, I want to thank you again. This interview's long overdue. I want to use. Yeah, it really is. I want to use you when things break. I want to bring you on here, and I want to have these type of discussions when things get hot. Not just with Billy Mitchell, but maybe do maybe once a month or once every 2 months, the state of gaming or something like that. And I want to nerd the fuck out with you, dude. Because I want to sincerely thank you for being there for me before, because I had no idea what to expect with internet fame, and you were there for me, and you're the only guy I really trusted, and you kind of proved that you're the only guy worth trusting. And then talking to me after it fell apart, and then even our relationship, we got in a little spat, we fucking worked it out, and it's really cool. And I really wish that everybody that's listening and watching would go down in the description box. If you are listening on iTunes or SoundCloud, go to my YouTube channel, and I would like you to sub Tipster. Especially if you're obligated if you're into retro games and you don't know about a Tipster. If you want to get into it, I think you're kind of becoming a bit of a journalist.
I try. I certainly try.
Yeah.
A lot of people call me that, and I'm like, I'm a commentator, but they keep putting the journalist label on me, so maybe I should just accept it.
Just go with it. Just go with it. You're doing private journalism. Why the hell not? So everybody go check. This man is more than fuckhead approved. He's a fuckhead, legit.
For sure, man.
Yes. All right, everybody. Dead on Dave on tomorrow. Thank you very much.
This is the almighty infinite, independent excellence. Devil fighting, rebel titan, weed smoking alchemist. Fake identities, okay, you cool with Jason Bourne. Running with these Wolverines, okay, you about to catch a storm. I ain't never been a liar, got tired of niggas playing me. Head in my legs like she about to catch a pedigree. Chi-Town to King's home, slapping fives, black stones. 6 mile to danger zones, bullets look like waffle cones. Folk affiliated to evolution of Machiavelli. Don't make me lead them eagles to you like I'm Chip Kelly. They feel my struggle, I express it through my hip hop. I'm about to make it hard to breathe, here's a headline.